So, good morning, committee. It's Thursday morning already. And today we're going to start off with our Michael, our legislative council person, and kind of going through any changes that we suggested to the Ag Department's miscellaneous bill. And I think that's what we're on.
Yep.
And so Michael, good to hear things went well with your son, and if you'd like to start off, we'd appreciate it.
Sure. This is Michael O'Grady with the Office of Legislative Counsel. I'm going to walk through the various components of what is known as the Agency of Agriculture Housekeeping Bill, or the Miscellaneous Agricultural Subjects Bill. I have walked through this with the committee before, did so quickly. The committee didn't ask for any changes at that point, but they did have questions. So when I walk through the sections, I will stop and reference where the questions were.
Yeah.
Does that work for all? Should I share my screen, or do you all want to work off your own individual copies?
Why don't you put yours up, Michael, on the screen?
Will do. Okay, can you see the screen?
Yeah.
Okay. So the first subject area section is related to livestock quarantine. The agency has significant authority to control livestock diseases, including quarantine of animals. What they're proposing to do is to clarify their authority to quarantine an animal when it's suspected of having been exposed to biological or chemical agents that may cause the animal's milk, processed dairy product, or other product to be adulterated or otherwise unsafe for human consumption or use. When I walked through the draft before, this raised the questions of PFAS contamination. Steve Collier, the general counsel for the agency, subsequently told me that it's not really about PFAS. It could be, but it's not really about PFAS. It's really about antibiotics or other drugs that may have contaminated the milk or the product. So they want to clarify that. Technically, I think that would already be adulterated under food and drug law, but this kind of closes the loop and gives the agency clear authority to quarantine that product and that animal when it's suspected to have chemical contamination. So I'll stop there.
Yeah, Emma, did one of your members have a question in regards to that quarantine policy?
I believe upon first look, there was confusion with members regarding who could order the quarantine, but we have clarified that it is most likely the state veterinarian or someone. It would be someone who's qualified to make the call on to quarantine said animals.
Yeah, like that.
Correct.
Yeah.
We just wanted the person to know what they were talking about, not just come on a farm and.
In quarantine, but that got squared away.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Thank you.
It may not be the state veterinarian or one of the other veterinarians. It's maybe one of the people in the program. If the testing of the product comes back with significant contamination, I think the secretary can delegate to someone other than a state veterinarian the ability to quarantine.
But the person would be qualified.
The person would be part of the program, yeah.
Yeah. I'm sure that's fine, but I'll double check.
So, Michael, I don't mean to throw a monkey wrench or whatever the correct phrase is here. I'm just wondering whether there's any benefit to, in essence, carving out the PFAS. What we're hearing is it's in everything already. So I guess the agency already sort of has the authority to look at that, but I'm wondering whether it makes any sense to say other than PFAS related chemicals, to sort of make sure that it is indeed, what you had mentioned before in terms of the chemical world. I'm probably not even asking that to make any sense.
Well,
So-
are you saying, is this the same section? Sorry, go ahead.
So I think, frankly, the agency's already proposed a way to deal with it. The last clause, where it says adulterated or otherwise unsafe for human consumption or use. So if it's above an action level, set either by the federal government or the State Department of Health, then it's going to be unsafe for human consumption or use. There are chemicals other than PFAS that are in product, but they're there at a level that's safe for human consumption and does not lead to adulteration of the product.
Okay.
So I think that last phrase addresses your concern, Senator Collmore.
Thank you. I'm fine.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. But is milk tested for PFAS? I have a vague recollection of it.
It can be, but it is not one of the things that is tested under the PMO, the pasteurized milk ordinance.
Right, so when you say if it's at a certain level that's not for human consumption, how would they find that out?
Well, they would have to suspect that there's contamination, and then they would order testing.
So if they found the milk to be contaminated with something, they would test for that, I presume, along with other issues.
Antibiotics, anything
Yeah.
else. Yeah, I think we're okay.
Okay, should I move on?
Yeah,
So the next subject matter relates to eggs and the updating of the egg law, the state egg law, to kind of bring it into modern times since it was last amended in 1973. And so you'll see the first section is the prohibitions. So a person shall not advertise or label eggs in a false or misleading manner. They may not sell, offer for sale, deliver, or donate eggs that do not satisfy the requirements of the chapter or the egg rule. And they cannot sell, offer for sale, deliver, or donate eggs that are adulterated within the meaning of Food and Drug Law adulteration or the rules adopted by the Department of Health for Food and Drugs. And then you get to the enforcement section. There used to be a division of business development at the agency. It's no longer there. And generally, we don't specifically reference divisions when referencing enforcement. It's just the Secretary's general authority. So that obsolete reference to the division is struck. And then in the notice of violation, this is being amended to conform to kind of the policy that the General Assembly has communicated to the agency that they want followed when a farmer may be in violation of the law. That the Secretary may issue a warning that shall be served in person to the farmer, and that the warning describes the alleged violation, identifies this section, the fact that they will get a warning, identification of the applicable violation, and the required corrective action that the person shall take. This does not preclude the agency from taking immediate action. This is just the preferred policy that was communicated by the General Assembly to the agency. It's incorporated under the Ag Water Quality Enforcement Authority. It's incorporated under the agency's general authority. This is just to clarify that you all, the General Assembly, has said you want a farmer to be warned, notified, warned of the violation, and told what needs to be done before the enforcement action is brought.
yeah.
All right, moving on. That leads you to the egg penalty. You can see that the egg penalties are a little out of date, with $25 to $100 being the default penalty and 50 to 500 being the second offense. So what the agency is proposing.
Michael, did you happen to look up and see when those penalties were put into place, or how long it's been since we've updated them?
So these penalties in section 357 were 1973. But then you will go on to section 6, where the agency's general administrative penalties are being amended. And you asked me to look when they were last amended. The 1000 was in 1989. And when the section, 89, when this section was first enacted. And then the total maximum penalty on page 7, the 25,000, that originally was 10,000 when enacted in 1989. But in the very next year, 1990, it was raised to 25,000. So that hasn't been amended since 1990.
And I wanted to ask the committee, do you think those increases are justified in your minds? It was 11, 20, so it'd be 35 years ago. So it's been 35 years since. So is that a reasonable increase?
Yeah, if the farm gets warned and has a chance to mitigate whatever the problem is, I don't see any problem with this being increased. I hate to use an example, but upstairs in the cafeteria, a donut and a cup of coffee is now $4. So everything in the world has gone up. There's just no way around it. And I don't think this is overly expensive.
And this is, they testified that even at the old rate, unless it was very
Right.
aggressive, they never charged the full amount.
Yeah.
So,
Did anyone weigh in with a negative feeling about it? I didn't get any emails from anybody.
no, I didn't either, and I raised the issue before on Zoom,
Yes, you
when
did.
we were doing our meetings, so
Yep.
yeah, I would have thought if somebody was real excited about it, they would have, emailed or called me. And no, I haven't heard, so we're, everybody okay with that?
Seems okay to me.
Yeah.
I have no real.
It's up to,
Yeah, it's up to, so, okay, Michael.
Okay. So moving back to the egg law, this is just to clarify what they're doing.
Okay. Those damn
With-
eggs are taking up a lot of our time.
Yeah. So instead of having the specific penalty in the egg law, what they're doing is that they're gonna reference the agency's general enforcement authority under Title VI, Chapter 1, which includes those administrative penalties you just looked at. That cross-reference on line 6 and 7 is to those administrative penalties you just looked at.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And it gives the secretary, or clarifies the secretary's ability to issue a cease and desist, stop sale or other required corrective action, which the secretary has generally under Title VI, Chapter 1. So this is really, again, just modernizing the egg law and bringing it into, current day enforcement provisions and how you have communicated to the agency how you want enforcement pursued against farmers.
Yeah.
Okay. So we just looked at the administrative penalty section, section 6. That leads you to the water quality sections. The first is really kind of a terminology change in the capital equipment assistance program of changing decrease greenhouse gases to mitigate greenhouse gas is in order to be more technically correct and to give the agency a little bit more discretion in how they award grants under the program.
Yep.
Okay. And then moving on from there, section 8, this is the amendment of municipal authority in Title 24 to clarify that municipalities that are implementing stormwater management and control have to do so consistent with A&R's authority under 1264, including maintaining the exemptions in 1264D, which is the agricultural exemption and does not charge an operating fee related to exempt practices. So many, well, I don't know how many, there are multiple municipalities in the state that are implementing stormwater management control programs, including stormwater utilities. And as part of their stormwater management, they're assessing stormwater impact fees or operating fees. And so what this is saying is that municipalities can't regulate agriculture because agriculture is exempt from stormwater regulation under 1264D, and they can't assess operating fees against those exempt practices, which include agriculture. Do you have any questions?
Is there an issue about that at the present time? Seems like
We heard from the Vermont League of Cities and Towns. who
Yeah.
Don't like this.
Right.
My question would be, for those that are already charging, does this undo that in some way?
Yes, because most of those municipalities have authorized their stormwater management provisions underneath a charter and or an ordinance that they've adopted. And so the ordinance can't be in conflict with statute. And when an ordinance or charter is in conflict with statute, then the statute controls.
Would it force the municipality to refund anything?
No, and you could be clear about that. That's actually a great question, because in other states where stormwater management provisions were implemented, they were implemented as they were allegedly implemented as fees, but property owners sued and said that they weren't fees, that they were taxes, and that the municipality didn't have the ability to issue that tax. And then the courts made them refund millions and millions of dollars, which was not something that many of the municipalities could afford. It's pretty clear in Vermont law that municipalities have the ability to regulate stormwater management, including assessment of fees. So that's not really an issue here, but that's a good question. And you could be clearer about the prospective nature of this. You don't necessarily need to be clear about it, because all Vermont law is prospective in application unless you specifically say it's retroactive, but you could be clear.
would there any comment from committee members? You want to have Michael do a little more research on that and
Yeah.
see if we can get something that would be more clear? Is that something you could, check out, Michael, on
Sure.
what, our neighbors are doing or some other states and,
I think we're pretty unique in that the General Assembly over the past 20 years has been really diligent about not creating the situations that have occurred in other states, for example, like Maine. So we don't have that problem, but you could be clear about that this does not require refund of any stormwater assessments assessed prior to the effective date of this act.
well, maybe, maybe you could work on that language
Sure.
and we could just review that section 8 with an updated change in the language. My only issue with that is, seems like the town we heard from, they put this fee on their property taxes. And if you happen to be on the opposite side of the hill, where any water that ran from your property went to a different town and, through the ditching, and so why should the town you live in collect this money if they aren't doing anything to the water runoff, if it's going in the opposite direction? And
So most of these fees, some are assessed on property tax bills, some are assessed on water bills, municipal water bills. Most of them for residential properties and some commercial properties use something called an equivalent residential unit. So instead of trying to measure the impervious surface of every parcel in the municipality, they use a formula that is, it's pretty tried and tested to come up with a general fee to be assessed on acreage of parcels. And it's been in use in Vermont for, I don't know, maybe almost 20 years.
see, if you live, I don't know what the town is, maybe it's Essex. When I come out of Burlington, I go up to Route 2A maybe, and then you turn off on the right and you go toward Williston. And then when you get down there, you take a left, and there's quite a few fields through there that are right along the river. And those guys are all giving up their footage on the riverbank to retain that water already in their fields. And if you took a community like that, the farmer's already losing quite a lot of money from not being able to harvest those crops in that width along the riverbanks. And then they get a bill from the town saying that they owe this other money because they have these acreages. It doesn't, the town doesn't take out that 50-foot buffer or whatever footage it is when they tax the farmer. And then, so they're getting taxed on it, plus they're losing the crop value that they could grow on it. to capture runoff and try to do their part in protecting the environment. There's gotta be some way where they aren't being over assessed for, you know, doing it. You know, if you own a house in a quarter acre in the village, you're paying very little, but if you own a farm with 250 acres, it adds, there should be a measurement there that where you take volume into consideration and what else other things that the farmer has to do that the guy in the village doesn't have to do. So I don't know what you guys.
Just, do you remember, Mr. Chair, did this original policy come out of finance years ago? Was that? I just vaguely remember being on that committee, and I think this will end up in finance if we do it, but I was just curious. It's tax policy.
Where did this language come from, Mike?
The original language in 4414, I
That,
think that was in the water and sewer law of 2003.
Yeah. and what about 1264? That's brand new.
1264 was substantially amended in 2015 under the Vermont Clean Water Act. It was totally rewritten, but the exemption for farming remained effectively the same as it had previous to 2015. That exemption provides that if they're in compliance with the required agricultural practices, they do not require operating permits from A&R for stormwater.
And what this does is it just extends that exemption.
It extends that exemption from operating requirements for farms to municipal authority.
Yeah. And what about that last 1264D?
That is the exemption for required agricultural practices or compliance with required agricultural practices.
So I'm trying to remember, Michael, and maybe you know, how many municipalities currently are charging this? And I don't want to say it the wrong way, but it seems to me like an extra fee. It seems like there were maybe 14, 15, 16, something like that.
I don't know exactly. It's probably in that range.
Okay, so if we struck, go ahead.
And as you noted already, some, like I think it's Essex that's the one that assesses it on their property tax bill, whereas Williston and South Burlington have it on their water bill, I believe.
Yeah.
South Burlington definitely has it on their water bill. And so there's different ways that they do it. It could be on your sewer, could be incorporated into your sewer rates. So there's ways that it can be done.
So if we were to strike section 8, it seems to me that might allow more and more municipalities to do this. If we fashion language and keep section 8 in, but work a little bit more on the exact thing that we want to do, I'm very sympathetic to what the chair indicated, that, you know, the farmer's already getting taxed and trying to do his or her part to, you know, to mitigate climate change stuff. And to me, it seems like by adding another operating fee, they're getting hit over the head again. And I don't know how to not, I'm sympathetic also to municipalities, but because I think they see this as a equity issue that, you know, I don't know what the answer is.
Right. And And
doing the climate
a,
stuff.
a part of the,
Go ahead, Michael, I'm sorry.
a part of the conversation needs to be that all farms in Vermont have to comply with the RAPs or their medium farm permit or their large farm permit. And those requirements are water quality permits that no one else, no other property owner has to comply with. And this summer for the Dairy Commission, I did a generalized breakdown of what costs that adds to a farm. And it's a significant cost. So, and that's, you know, leaving aside that a large farm permit pays $2,500 a year, medium is $1,500, et cetera. And so I think what the agency is saying is farms are already implementing water quality requirements, even more so than other properties. And they're already paying for it at a cost that far exceeds what other properties are paying.
I think you came out with $1.76 or 8 a hundredweight on that
Right.
thing.
But that was for all environmental costs. It wasn't just
Yeah,
water quality.
Well, I'm hoping we could find a sweet spot in this section to,
So if the way that's written, they would be exempt.
correct.
So,
But my question about whether municipalities that are already doing this would have to not do it anymore, and then the refund situation, and maybe that is clouding the issue, I don't
So
know.
did,
So I just want to clarify, the municipality will continue to be able to assess stormwater fees, but just not on farm operations that are complying with the required agricultural practices.
so did you say there's 14 communities?
I'm remembering it was in the teens, I don't know what the exact number
But
is.
it's under 20,
I believe so.
and they charge through sewage.
Water
Water.
or property tax.
The mechanism depends. It depends on the town, how they collect, how they assess and collect. But it's there. They have,
But some variation in all of that.
Yeah.
So if they assess it on the property tax and they're in current use, how does that work?
It's usually assessed as an additional fee. I think Essex is the one that does it as I think it's a percentage in Essex, like a 1% assessment, something like that.
So so when they assess the 1% fee, and the property's in current use, does that fall back on the ed fund to fund it?
No, I think it's part of the municipal component of the property tax, not the ed fund component.
Then it comes out of the general fund.
And it comes out of the general fund.
So the state is paying it.
Well, that is a policy debate about whether or not
the
the state
other,
is losing anything.
Well, I'm just trying to understand. That was a question.
the other issue though, that we should also think about it, if the numbers are that small, and there's 3 different ways, sewer, water bills, or property taxes, and you say that there's only 14 or so
Towns.
yeah, I mean, we're talking about, you're down to, it could be affecting three towns or 4 towns. Because some are gonna be in the water bill, some are gonna be in the sewer bills, and some would be on the taxes. So if you divide the total number by 3, we're possibly talking about not very many communities would be affected. Or you aren't gonna take that little bit of money off from the farms and pass it back to the the other residents in town. It's gonna be a very small amount. So, and then I just feel that the farm is already doing a lot to mitigate and problems and trying to clean up the waters and if they're already paying, why charge them again?
Yeah, it feels to me like, we always talk about the left pocket or the right pocket, where it seems like the farmer's being asked to find a third pocket. And I don't know that that's fair.
Well, if they're putting it on and it's in Atlantic Crews, we end up.
And there's a fourth pocket.
Like that either.
Can we see like
You're
a
the
chart
one
on
I
this?
feel bad for.
You
You're the only farmer in, you're the chicken farmer. We've already zapped you on your eggs.
Yeah.
Now we're gonna get you on your property tax.
I knew I was gonna get screwed out of something on this committee.
What were you gonna suggest?
Well, just like a side, like just try to understand it financially, like I just can't get it in my head. If somebody could just kind of show a little bit like, this is what's happening now, and this is what this part of the bill would end up, like if joint fiscal could just help me understand it. You know what I mean? Like just something, you know, Cummings is gonna, that's what she's gonna have. them
Would
do.
be interesting
I'd
to
just be
see what
curious.
towns it is too.
Yeah,
Is that something we could do a little more work on, Michael?
Yeah, sure. I can talk with, I'd probably start with A&R, and talk with them about how many towns are assessing stormwater impact fee, and how they're doing it. And then I would probably talk to the Agency of Ag about how many of those towns are assessing against ag land.
Yeah.
yeah, if somebody could just come up with some chart that would just show, this is what's happening now, we passed this, bam, this is what happens now.
Maybe joint fiscal could run a number or two on that, of what, or
That's
somebody
gonna,
can.
that's gonna be, that might take some time. Because remember, each town that does it uses a different mechanism to do it. So there might be a different formula. So, and it depends on how many agricultural land properties are in the town. I just don't know how long that would take.
For what it's worth, I would need to see every town, just a little bit of, maybe that'll come out of some of this additional testimony, just a little bit of like, this is what's happening now, like one example, and this is what would change it.
Yeah.
But we can hear from like you, Ag
Well-
and A&R and see if it helps clarify things.
The other thing we could do, if this Section 8 is gonna tie the bill up for 2 or 3 weeks, we could pull Section 8 and add it to the housekeeping bill that the house is gonna send us. But we wanna,
They're sending some kind of, they're sending also like their miscellaneous or.
yeah,
The other
they've
half.
got about half of these issues. And I think the key, or my key point is, whatever we do, we want to get it as close to being right as possible and not.
Well, I support I know where you're trying to go. I'm just trying to get my head around it exactly how it would all work. And what's out there now.
So next week, next week sometime, you think we might be able to get something back, Michael?
I can definitely, I'm pretty sure I can get the number of towns that have it and identify those towns. I could probably figure out what the mechanism is. I could probably get an estimate from the Agency of Ag about how many of them are assessing against ag land.
Yeah.
And then about what revenue would be lost under this proposition, I don't know how long that would take.
I think that would help the committee a lot, to be able to move forward with this. So if you would do that, certainly appreciate it. And we'll get back at it. I don't know what day we've got on the proposed. Next Wednesday, we've got scheduled back on, but if it's ready by then, fine. If not, we'll, I think I left Friday morning kind of open.
Okay. Sure.
Thanks.
I
Yeah.
am on Wednesday next week. I am in Senate Natural for an hour and a half in the morning. So after that, so I'd be available at 10 o'clock on.
If you're still in a normal state of mind, we'd be glad to have you. Otherwise, we'd rather have you first and go there second.
Good, no answer, Mike. Good, no answer.
Okay.
Okay.
Hey, tell your son we're all rooting for him, all right?
Yeah.
Great. I
absolutely.
appreciate it. Thank you.
Yes,
Yeah.
100%.
I will see you all soon.
Thank you, Michael.
Thank you.
Okay. Bye.
We'll be in touch. So we, we'll take that up next week, once we try to get this ironed out. The big thing is to be fair about it,
Yeah, and you don't want to be hitting people multiple times. I just can't get it.
Okay. Anyway, we got some special guests with us next. Folks from the SNAP program, and is it Harry?
It's Carrie.
Yeah, come on up and
Thank you.
and welcome to the Senate Ag Committee.
Thank you.
And, it's good to see you brought some people with you, and
Yeah.
you could introduce them and glad to hear from you.
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Chair Star, and hello again. It's so nice to be back.
We should introduce ourselves because
Okay.
maybe you haven't met us, so.
Brian Collmore representing the Rutland District.
Irene Runner, Chittenden North plus Fairfax.
Brian Campion, Benton County.
Rich Westman from Des Moines.
And Bobby Starr from Orleans. So welcome, and the floor is yours.
Thank you. So I'm Carrie Saylor. I live in Linden and I work for the Vermont Food Bank as the Government and Public Affairs Officer. And I'm here with a few other folks today. We're coming right from the House Ag, Food Resiliency and Forestry Committee. So two of them are still up there. But one of them is here with me. This is Ariana Matthews-Salzman. She is a colleague of mine at the food bank and also works with the Richmond Farmers Market. So we'll be talking to you from sort of the farmers market perspective as well as her unique food bank perspective. And then joining us shortly will be Joanna Doran from NOFA Vermont, who's their local food access manager, and Joey LaPoulier, who is from Footbrook Farm in Johnson. She brought you a sampling of perspectives today. And we are here because today is SNAP Awareness Day. And SNAP is the Supplemental Nutrition Access Program. It's a federal program that is called 3 Squares Vermont here in Vermont. Oh, and John Sales has joined us too. So, Joy and Johanna are here as well. I introduced you in your absence. This is Joey and Johanna. One of the reasons that we're holding this awareness day today is because the SNAP program is about to have a dramatic change federally, and it will have some distinct impacts on Vermont consumers as well as Vermont food producers and farmers and retailers. And so I'm here to sort of give you a broad overview, but each of our other guests will give you sort of a more specific vision of that. This is a federal program that is eligibility based. So people need to make 185% of the federal poverty level or less in order to qualify for the SNAP food assistance program. When they do qualify, they get food benefits that go on an electronic benefits card, like a little credit card that they can use at food retailers. And that's 185% of the federal poverty level in real terms. I'll give you a couple examples. So for a single person household, that's $26,973 a year or less they have to make in order to receive this benefit. So not 26,973. And this is all in my written testimony too. So you can check that out later if you want to. For a 4-person household, that's $55,500 a year. And benefit levels shift depending on household numbers. So a family, a single person household is eligible from anywhere from $23 a month to $281 a month. And that scale works that the more they make, the lower the benefit, the less they make, the higher the benefit. During the pandemic, along with lots of other federal programs that help support people, the federal government put in place what's called an emergency allotment. And that allowed everyone who is eligible for this program to receive the maximum allowable benefit for their household size each month. So every single person household was eligible for $281 per month. In the middle of March, that emergency allotment ends. Congress made the choice to shift that before the end of the federal health emergency. And so that program is ending before the federal health emergency ends.
And we'll fall back to the 1-person, 2-person.
It'll fall back to the eligibility level based on income alone.
Yeah.
So a household that's making closer to 185% of the federal poverty level will only receive $23 a month. We like imagine what $23 a month can help you buy in groceries, right? It's like what, 3 cartons of eggs? Done, gone.
If you find them on sale.
Right, exactly. So it is not a lot of money for people who are already not earning a lot of money. This is not a program that we can change or address our loan here in Vermont, but I do want to give you a sense of the scale of this shift. There are 72,000 people in Vermont who use the SNAP program, and they belong to 41,000 households. So it's roughly 10% of our population who's using this benefit. The emergency allotment portion alone, that extra bonus people were getting in the middle of the month, is valued at $6.5 million per month, or between $70 and $80 million a year. The overall SNAP program brings in about $11 to $12 million a month. So that emergency allotment was giving the state a huge boost for people for buying power for their groceries. It is also impacting farms, farmers markets, and grocery retailers being able to receive more of that food through their existing grocery purchasing systems. And so that shift is going to impact everyone from the consumers who need food to the people who provide that food. From our perspective at the food bank, we are anticipating and already hearing about a higher need at our network partner sites and at our direct distributions. I spoke to a partner in Brattleboro last week. He said at the end of January, his numbers were up 30 to 50% on any given day. And people were coming in and saying, I heard a radio story that my SNAP emergency benefits are going away. I want to save what I have left, so I'm going to use the food shelf more. And so food shelves and food pantries are going to become more of a regular grocery shopping resource for people, not just an emergency resource as this shift happens. We originally anticipated seeing that in April, but are now realizing that people are starting to do that, shift now in order to preserve those SNAP benefits. Overall, households enrolled in this program will lose between about $100 and $500 a month on average, although some larger households will lose up to $2,000 a month that they've been receiving to purchase groceries for their families.
Can you just repeat that again?
Yes. On average, households will lose $100 to $500 per month from their SNAP grocery budget. And larger households, a few larger households will lose up to $2,000 a month.
And again, this starts
The last
For the last-
emergency allotment
yeah.
will be dispersed in mid-March.
mid-March.
So April is essentially going to be the first month where this is totally gone, but people are really worried about this now.
Yeah.
We had a listening session with our network yesterday, and people were bringing up instances of people coming to them with concerns, anxieties, asking for how much extra food they could take now, what shelf-stable food, what frozen food they had available. So, you know, people are really thinking hard about how this is going to impact their lives and their households. I don't want to leave you feeling like this is all dire. There are things that the state legislature can do to help mitigate these challenges. One of them is to support the food bank's $3 million request for funds. And that's in order to help make sure that our network is as prepared as we can be to help people fill their pantries when this shift happens. The other is to continue to support the Universal Meals Program and fund it off the top of the education fund in order to make sure that students have free breakfast and lunch, and that we're able to continue that resource for families. One of the reasons we're seeing such high food insecurity is because many of these federal programs that were available during the pandemic have gone away, and we've shifted that burden to the charitable food system. Universal school meals is key to continuing those resources from a statewide level.
Do you know, is the 3 million for the food bank on top of what they're getting, or is that the full allotment?
The only other funds that we get is about $84,000 from the state of Vermont through an education program for distribution for transportation. So that $3 million would be on top of the $84,000 that would be in the budget already. Was there another amount you were thinking of?
No.
Okay.
I thought we gave more to that, but
The food bank
Yeah.
gets X dollars, like this year, gets X dollars.
There's
The 3 million, is that on top of what we normally appropriate?
So the state normally does not appropriate any money beyond the $84,000. That is,
This is new.
this is new money. So there was $2 million for the fiscal year 23 budget that the food bank received. And that was a one-time appropriation. I believe it was ARPA funds. This $3 million is for fiscal year 24. And to my knowledge, there's no other money in the
And
budget.
is that in the budget now, or is the government?
It is not in the governor's budget.
Oh, okay, so that's new, that 3 million is new money.
New money, and we're asking for 3 million in base funding because we see this as an issue that's going to continue for some time, and it's our hope to have continuity in order to help people be able to rely on our network to ensure they have food available. Does that help? Okay, great.
Yeah.
The other program I'd ask you to support is a bill that's in the House right now. It's H109. And that bill is to support additional funding for the Older Vermonters Nutrition Program. So that will help bring reimbursement rates up for programs like Meals on Wheels, for nutrition education programs for older Vermonters. It really helps to support people who are also part of this, usually part of this SNAP impacted group.
And do you have that amount?
It is my understanding that they were asking for $3 million in support. It's unclear to me what amount is actually in H109. I'm not sure if it is that $3 million, but the $3 million is what the area agencies on aging have calculated they need to keep that program going at the rate they need to.
Yeah.
And then the other piece is information that I'll send you in an email later, but the Vermont Farm Bill Nutrition Coalition, which is made up of Hunger Free Vermont, the Food Bank, NOFA, CAP agencies, Vermont Center for Independent Living, a variety of organizations. We spent last summer and fall working with over 400 people across the state to put together recommendations for the federal Farm Bill. The Farm Bill is the legislation that governs the SNAP program. And there are a number of recommendations in that package that we'll be sending on to our federal delegation to tell them that we want improvements to that program, higher eligibility levels, different benefit calculations, as well as other improvements to programs that the food bank uses, like the Emergency Food Access Program and the Commodity Supplemental Food Program. So I will send you an email for that, the list of recommendations and a sign-on letter where you can join us in signing on to that.
Yeah, Rich.
Would it not be impossible to supplement the SNAP benefit from the state level?
It depends. That supplemental benefit at $6.5 million a month is a lot. The state could make a choice to supplement those benefits in another way. I haven't seen or heard a recommendation for that or how those would be doled out exactly.
Next question. And it doesn't affect all of the people that get SNAP particularly, but the reach out benefit is insanely low.
Agreed.
If you are a single mom or a single parent with 2 kids, the reach out benefit's about $860 a month. Would it not be better for us to trust those individuals and increase their benefit?
I think you should do both. Really, I think increasing the reach up benefit is a key poverty reduction program, and the people who are involved in that program are also people who are eligible for the SNAP program. I don't know all the details. There is some interaction between receiving SNAP benefits and a reduction in your reach up benefits. So my recommendation would be to unhitch those two things and say, you know, you can receive SNAP because it's specifically for foods that you can purchase in a grocery store and only eligible foods are allowed, right? So it is not the same as something like Reach Up. In addition, finding a way to support Reach Up.
And not everybody that is in Reach Up. That some people are not in Reach Up that get SNAP benefits.
Many people, yeah.
Older, but you know, young families that I look at that.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that what we can do to support young families, we should do. It makes a big difference.
Right.
So just for the record, I'm looking at the bill in the House, 2.3 million.
Okay,
is
thank you.
what was added. It'll run through Dale and add.
Which is this? This is the 2.34.
H109.
H1,
H109.
okay, thank you.
And it'll add $2 per home delivered meal to the reimbursement rate paid to providers. So
Yes, and I think they were hoping for $3 million for $285 to each meal or something like that. I can't remember all the details.
Yeah, does it say anything if that's moving,
no, it's still in committee. I don't even think it's been,
Irene?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Is Reach Up state or federal? You said they're tied, so I guess that's SNAP.
Senator Weston, I'm wondering if you can help answer that question.
We administer.
Yeah.
Who's up? I'm sorry.
We administer.
We administer Reach Up, but the money comes from the feds.
It's
Some
a
of it.
mix.
Yeah.
Is it a match?
Well, some of that comes out of global commitment.
Yeah,
money.
that's true.
So we match it.
All right,
our
thank you.
money and-
But, you know, that we increased the Reach Up benefit in the Senate budget last year we went through. It had been, it's been almost 10 years. And part of the problem is, most of the advocacy, and I'm going to say this, most of the advocacy groups that are around the legislature lobbying get donations from people. And so they represent the people they get donations from. If you're on Reach Up, you're too poor to donate to have lobbies.
It's very similar with SNAP
Yeah,
participants, yeah.
lucky to eat. So,
Well, at $860 a month, you do get some food allowance, and then most of those have been
they
getting
get,
the maximum from this, but this is a big hit.
It will have a dramatic effect on single parent households. And you'll hear a little bit later how the primary people calling the food bank helpline are older Vermonters and single parent households. Those are really who we hear from for application assistance and help to navigate this program.
I'm not telling you anything other than that we need to be up in the Senate at 20 after.
All right.
So,
Well, we better keep moving then.
yeah.
All right. Ari, do you want to, Joanna? Thank you so much.
Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, thank you.
Good morning. Thank you, Chair Starr, for having us today. My name is Joanna Doran. I live in Winooski and I'm the local food access coordinator with the Northeast Organic Farming Association of Vermont, or NOFA Vermont.
Yeah.
I'm here today to talk about how the reduction in SNAP allotments will affect local farmers and some programs that NOFA runs that can help, that are currently in place that are helping soften the blow in some ways that the state can support the work that we do. At NOFA Vermont, we know that thriving organic farms and agriculturally based communities nourish people and enhance the environment. As Carrie was saying, there's a lot of Vermonters, 72,000 Vermonters receive SNAP benefits, and that's a huge opportunity to leverage federal resources and direct it to local producers. There's a lot of barriers that stand in the way for local farms and for farmers markets to accept SNAP benefits from folks that large corporate retailers do not have. And this reduces the ability for lower income Vermonters to purchase food from their local farms. These structural barriers in our larger systems effectively prioritize industrial agriculture over locally produced food and build into our reliance on a food system that's damaging to the people and environment that are in it. The solution to this imbalance is on the state level is to strengthen programs that make it easier, more affordable for lower income Vermonters to buy from local producers. So in that vein, NOFA administers a few different food access programs. There are two SNAP incentive programs called Crop Cash and Farm Stand Match. Crop Cash is effectively a matching program so that SNAP customers get additional funds to use at farmers markets when they spend their SNAP dollars there. Similarly, Farm Stand Match effectively works as a 50% discount on produce at local farms. And NOFA Vermont directs these federally funded programs. They direct federal dollars back to the farmers directly. So it's feeding the local economy. Yes.
So, and that also, all of that will again come mid-March. It's going to be an issue. Farmers aren't going to, I mean, this is going to really be a huge impact on everyone.
So those programs will continue happening,
Okay.
but the amount of SNAP dollars will
Okay.
plummet, and
Thank
so likely the matching amount will not be used as much.
Thank you. Sorry to interrupt.
So just for some context, before the pandemic, in these emergency SNAP allotments, the number of SNAP dollars spent at farmers markets across the state was about $86,000. And in the last year, that number was about $146,000. So there's a huge increase in the number of SNAP dollars that were spent at farmers markets. And the matching amount that we were able to provide through Crop Cash went from before the pandemic from $55,000 to this year, it looks like it'll exceed $120,000. So that's a 220% increase. So we know that people want local food, and that when they have the funds to do that, they're gonna choose that. But there's a lot of logistical barriers to purchasing local food, going to a farmer's market, and with reduced spending power, that's going to further make that choice difficult for people. Another program that NOFA Vermont administers, which is not federally funded, is the Farm Share program. And that is a discount program so that Vermonters can receive a community supported agriculture or a CSA share at local farms for a reduced cost. The summer season application opened on February 1st this year. And typically that program application is open for 2 months. And in just the first 2 weeks, we've seen more applicants than ever before, requesting more assistance than ever before. So that is pushing our budget at NOFA. We get, small grants and philanthropy to support that program. So we do what we can to assist as many people as possible, but we're seeing a huge demand. A lot of people have called this program a lifesaver for them in times of need when they've been very strapped financially, or even, now in the era of inflation that we're in, a lot more people are having trouble purchasing local food and they want to support local farms. So the Vermont legislature can help SNAP recipients and farmers in Vermont by supporting programs like these. We thank the legislature for generously allocating a one-time funding of $200,000 in the fiscal year 2023 budget, and that money will be used to expand our SNAP incentive program at farmers markets and to support the Farm Share program. We foresee these funds being absolutely critical for the success of our programs this year, and that the need will likely only increase with the reduction in SNAP benefits. We would love to come back later this session and report on the impact of these funds. Once again, the reduction in SNAP allotments will affect local farmers and Vermonters alike, and our food access programs at NOFA Vermont are working hard to fill in the gaps, but the gap left by federal funding is too big for us to fill alone. You can also support farmers by allocating $500,000 to the local purchasing incentive for schools. And then, as Carrie said, you can join us in the Vermont Farm Bill Nutrition Coalition by signing on to the recommendations we're making to support farms in the 2023 Farm Bill in DC. Thank you for listening, and I'm happy to answer any questions. I also have some flyers about the Crop Cash and Farm Share program if you'd like a little bit more information about that.
So are there questions for each other?
Thank you.
Yeah, well, thank you, and
Thank you.
we'll be working on all these things.
Yeah.
Thank you.
The budget on the new budget. We've looked at it, but we just finished the budget adjustment yesterday, so we'll be digging into the 24 budget probably tomorrow.
Everything you talked about is in my budget.
Yeah,
Thank you.
he has that portion.
Well,
That for
Well,
Farm
great.
Share.
If you don't get any money at all, Richie Westman,
Oh,
yeah, Richie.
802-59.
We got his address and his phone number. No, we all, down there, we work on issues until we can all agree, and we do pretty well.
This is a good.
Yeah. So, oh, you're already with us, so welcome, and
Thank you. Thank you for having me. My name is Joey LaHoyer. My husband Tony and I have the Footbrook Farm in Johnson, Vermont.
Say hello to
I will.
well, Richie, your senator.
Yes, yeah.
Oh,
I was very excited to hear he was on the ag commission
So
this
if
year.
everything goes down, you know where.
I've contacted him many times. I really just want to kind of very quickly, just more on what Johanna and Carrie are talking about, and give you kind of a little bit of a real view of what I see at the farm stand and what it means to us as the farmers. So our farm stand is going to be, well, first we have about 30 acres in production. So we're a pretty big organic vegetable farm. Probably like the 14th or the 10th largest in the state. But we have a big farm stand on site. We also wholesale through Deep Root. The farm stand is really like our focus. That's like our pride and joy. So it is open from the end of June until the middle of November every year. It is fully staffed 7 days a week. So I have somebody manning the counter all the time. Because of that, I was able to accept a lot of programs like EBT, and then the farm stand match program. I also farmers market coupons. One struggle I've always had is to get the type of Vermonters, that the low income Vermonters, into the farm stand. It's very pretty. I attract lots of tourists, but getting the folks into the farm stand that live right there in Johnson, that need that good food, has always been a struggle. So these programs have helped me get those people in the door. Once they do come and buy the food, they they see that, oh, they always have discounted produce as well. And not every tomato comes out looking beautiful, as you can imagine. So I always have lower priced produce for that, for anybody to buy anyway, but this really gets them in the door so that they can see that there is affordable food there. So anything that you can do to boost those programs to keep getting them in is going to be important to me. This is going to be a tough year for all businesses and farms because of the cost of goods and the different things that are going up. I don't feel comfortable raising the price of my food, so I have to find other ways to save money and to make sure that I'm getting as many of those of everybody into the farm stand that I can. So that's anything you can do to help with that. I appreciate it. We'll continue to work with our food shelf like we always have. The schools do, some of them do come specifically to buy from me, but mostly Deep Root sells to, I sell to Deep Root sells to the food programs. I mean, the school food programs.
So is that universal meals program at the schools, has that helped your veggie business or farm stand business?
Definitely, because they buy through Deep Root. So Deep Root is our wholesaler. So when we are selling to them, we're selling pallets of food and they are buying, I don't know specifically all the different names of who's actually buying the food, and then they're processing it and then that food is going out to the school. So it absolutely helps us.
You're the farm right out of Johnson on the
You should
left.
stop, Bobby. The vegetables are delicious.
Yes.
We stop all the time.
We're right off Route 15. We're really lucky to have a very good spot.
Yeah, it is a nice spot. Yeah, and the store isn't that old, right?
This will be our 10th year.
Yeah.
Wow.
And did you notice an uptick during the COVID fiasco with people coming in?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I have numbers all written down but it really goes with what Johanna was saying too, where it was at least a 50% increase, if not more than that. And with those extra dollars that these people were getting through their EBT, they were more apt to come to the farm stand to use them. And if they're getting $26 versus $200, and they're going to spread that around a little bit more. And we really appreciate those folks coming in, and we make them feel super comfortable. And we want to continue to be able to do that.
Yeah. And do you have like a local transit that they can come with, or do they hook rides with? Because you're out of town a little bit far to walk, so from the center of town.
It's true. Not that I know of. I would like, it would be wonderful if there was a better way for them to get to us. I used to do the Morrisville Farmers Market. And one thing that I really saw when I was not able to do that anymore was those folks that were going to the market really missed me being there, which is why I fought so hard to be able to accept farmers market coupons at my farm stand. So they would have their son, their daughter, somebody else come get them if they couldn't get out. But I would love a way for them to be able to get there better. So if you could fund that too, that'd be great.
Well, the largest trailer park in Johnson borders the farm. My question is, do you think you've got people from the trailer park? Because I suspect there's a fair number of those that are under 85% of poverty in Johnson.
I don't think so, to be honest with you. I really don't. When I walk into the elementary school and I'm always volunteering in there, and I see the kids and I see the parents, and I'm always wondering, why don't I see these folks in my farm stand? So that's really what I would like to see, is how do I incentivize them to come in?
That trailer park's huge.
We have a couple in Johnson.
Yeah, but that one particularly.
The one just back toward the village.
One behind Vermont Electric.
Oh, yeah.
That's a big
Right.
trailer park.
Yeah, it's neighboring, almost neighboring.
Yes,
On the backside of where their meadows are, it is.
Yeah.
and I'm sure there are some that come in, but I don't feel like.
I just wondered if you got them, so.
Well,
Thank you.
Did we miss anyone?
We did have one more person attached, but if you have to go, we can submit her testimony in written form and maybe that would be helpful, or do you want her to try and do
I
the
can try to
3-minute version?
condense it if you
Yeah.
have, you want me to try? Okay.
Well, I hate to have you come to Montclair and not get abused a little.
Thank you, Senator. Well, thanks for making space and time for me. Thank you for having me. My name is Ariana and I live in Huntington, and I work at the food bank with Carrie. I'm a Three Squares Vermont specialist, and I also manage the farmers market in Richmond. I actually just moved from my manager role to being on the board just last week. So in my Three Squares Vermont specialist position at the food bank, on a daily basis, I'm screening people for eligibility for SNAP benefits. And if they're eligible for benefits, or if I think they'll be eligible based on their gross monthly income and household size, I assist them in completing an application for SNAP. The application process can be quite confusing and long lasting and intimidating. And so we provide that support at the food bank. When I screen people for eligibility, if they're near the maximum eligible income limit that Carrie was talking about, I explain to them that they might be approved for a very small benefit amount. So to give you an example, if a household of one person makes around $2,000 a month, then they're only about $100 away from the maximum income, allowed income. And they'll probably only be approved for $23 a month or so of benefits. So I want you all to know that when I speak with people who are near this maximum allowed monthly income, they are still very stressed about where their next meal is going to come from and how they're going to feed themselves and get the type of food they need to stay healthy. They're calling our Three Squares Vermont helpline to be screened for eligibility and for application assistance for a reason. They're calling us as a last resort, and they're financially strained and they're struggling to feed themselves, even though they have an income and they're making almost too much to be eligible for benefits. And they're really anxious about seeking help and benefits, and they don't want to need help and they don't want to need benefits. They're often older Vermonters or disabled or single parent households. But for the past 3 years, we've been able to encourage people who are near this maximum allowed monthly income to apply for benefits because the SNAP emergency allotments have been in place, and that has been a good incentive for them to apply for benefits, and in the emergency allotments have helped them greatly. Even if you are only going to be approved for $23 a month, you're still going to get $281 a month. And that's for a one-person household. But when emergency allotments go away, the last allotment is going out in March. So in April, a household of one person, if they're approved for $23 a month, they're going to be short $258 a month now, or starting in April. So there is a Vermont Public story interviewing an individual who's in a situation like this. The link to that radio broadcast is in my written testimony. And we also have a blog on the Vermont Food Bank website that details 2 stories about 2 folks who are going to experience this reduction in benefits as well. And Carrie can follow up with links to those. Okay, so quickly, I'm switching hats now. As a farmers market manager, I've seen SNAP dollars make it into the pockets of Vermont farmers for the past 3 summers, and a significant amount of SNAP dollars as well. Last summer in 2022 at the Richmond market, we saw on average almost $300 a week come into the market of SNAP related dollars. Now that's both SNAP money and then also the crop cash in coupons that Joanna was talking about. It's a combination of those 2 things. Okay, I'm skipping through a little bit. So to link the importance of SNAP emergency allotments to farmers markets, the emergency allotments have put money into the hands of Vermonters who are spending that money at farmers markets. At the Richmond market, we've seen an uptick in customers spending SNAP dollars compared to before the pandemic, before emergency allotments were in place. So last summer in 2022, we compared our weekly SNAP income to 2019, which was the last year that emergency allotments were not happening. And we saw a 376% increase in SNAP related dollars coming into the market, 2022 compared to 2019. And I also included a graph that's very impactful in my written testimony that displays that. So I just want you all to know that it's going to be very difficult to make up for the flexibility and stress relieving supports that these emergency allotments have brought to Vermont households. And it's also, we may see a downturn in SNAP dollars flowing to our farmers. But there are ways to mitigate this, and Joanna and Carrie have delineated them very well. You can support the food bank by backing our appropriations request of $300 million in base funding in the budget for this year.
3 million.
Just three. We will take it, but $3 million. And then also support NOVA food access programs with future funding requests as well.
Well, we squeezed you in. Hey,
I almost asked for 100 times more money.
Thank you
well,
all.
Thank you
so
for.
much.
Thank you.
Thank you, and
Thank you.
sorry to crowd you out, but that, when that green light